I've done a lot of these videos about what roles on primary weapons you want, but now let's talk about specials, and to hell with it, we'll do snipers first. Heads up everybody, my name is SentinelGray and welcome to the channel. Alright, so I have done auto rifles, pulse rifles, hand cannons, those types of things, and I hope those videos have helped you in some way, shape, or form. But now let's talk about sniper rifles. I've compiled a list here of what I think are extremely good options for doing anything in the end game. You know, like raids, master raids, Grandmaster nightfalls, those sorts of things. And options for everyday use for whenever you're just running around slaying things with the clan. Or just your friends. I don't know your life. Anyway, like usual, I'm going to start out with a disclaimer. 1. These are all options for PvE, and in no way, shape, or form is this supposed to be a used for Crucible fieldwork type thing. I mean, Shax might look at you a little disappointed. Maybe. You never know. It might work. 2. These are all of my personal opinion, and while I do have my reasons for wanting certain stats or certain roles, just because they work for me doesn't mean they'll work for you. Also, that doesn't mean either of us are wrong in this. I mean, come on, there's like a million different ways to play the game. So starting out, let me talk about snipers for everyday use. Using a sniper for normal things like strikes, override missions, or just for bounties doesn't need to have heavy hitting perks on it. In fact, if I'm running around with a sniper for my every day-to-day things, I almost never want it to have Vorpal weapon. It's too niche of a perk for every day, honestly. However, there are 2 snipers that I love and would love to use in the everyday, and that is Praetor's Revenge and Uzumi? I think it's Uzumi, RR4. Now, I don't have an Uzumi as of yet, but I do have a ton of Praetor's Revenge. And since I can see all the perks that Uzumi can roll with, and I've used adaptive frame snipers a lot in the past, I know what I'm gunning for in an Uzumi. Speaking of which, let's start out with Uzumi, since I've never gotten my hands on one yet, and work towards the guns that I've had the most experience with. So, as I look at what Uzumi can roll with, there are a ton of good options here, especially things that would make it a decent contender for endgame activities, but it easily gets outclassed by 2 snipers that I'll bring up later. However, what I want on an Uzumi is fluted barrel, tactical mag, clown cartridge, and high impact reserves. If you notice, there's not a trait or perk on that roll that does anything for its range, and you might be asking why. Well, I'm going to be honest. When was the last time that you went for a snipe on an enemy that was literally on the other side of a patrol area and didn't kill it? And I don't know about you, but for me, never. In my opinion, sniper rifles don't need that much more range than they naturally come with, and Uzumi has the highest natural range stat out of literally all the adaptive frame snipers in the game. So what does that leave? Everything else. And since handling helps your ready speed and ADS speed, I'm not going to feel lost without my snapshot sights or quick draw perk, especially since I'm using this for PvE. And since I feel like I can skip out on having any perks that are associated with range, I can put things like fluted barrel and tactical mag on it to help it in everywhere else I can. Also, real fast before I continue, this is going to be a common theme in the roles that I want. So if you ask me why, or if you look at the screen and go why at any point in this video, literally just come back here. Now let's talk about wanting clown cartridge and high impact reserves. The reason I want this is simple. More total damage with more rounds on more targets with the least amount of specifics. To fully explain, clown cartridge on Uzumi can get you 6 in the magazine with tactical mag. Maybe 7 if you're extremely lucky and the math ends up working that way. Now, you may say something like, why don't you use extended magazine and clown cartridge instead? That's a good question. The reason is because it absolutely tanks your reload speed for, maybe 1 or 2 rounds at the most? For me, I do not like this trade, literally at all. That's why I use tactical mag. Now, the only other perk to contest with clown cartridge in the eyes of a lot of players is triple tap, and understandably so. You hit 3 crits and you get a bullet back. It's not a bad perk. The problem here is that it is very specific. You need to land 3 crits in order to capitalize on it. And I don't know about you, but I don't always land crits when I'm out and about. I'm not an aimbot. So to me, Clown Cartridge has the best chance for giving me more ammo with the least amount of specific requirements. Moving on to high impact. Why would I want high impact on my gun instead of Vorpal weapon? And this one is easy. It's because Vorpal weapon only applies to bosses, vehicles, and guardians and their supers. That's a 15% damage boost to all of those. High impact is a damage boost that ramps up as the magazine gets lower to literally everything. High impact doesn't care if it's the smallest hive thrall to Atheon in the Vault of Glass. High impact works on all of them. And granted, yes, you can argue for things like, but Vorpal weapon has better overall boss damage. And that's great. But like I said before, this is for everyday use. With this roll, I can use Uzume on anything the game throws at me at any given day and absolutely destroy it. Waves of Thrall, big old Centurions, Vex Cyclopses, you name it, I'll be able to kill it. Still, with all that being said, if you end up getting an Uzume that has any combination of triple tap, Clown Cartridge, Vorpal weapon, or high impact reserves, don't get rid of it. It can still be good in that endgame activity. Moving on, we have Praedyth's Revenge. I touched on this in my video where I talk about all the vault weapons, but I'm going to go into this a little bit more. If Praedyth was an adaptive frame sniper, there might not be another one you'd want to use in the entire game. But it's not, so we have it as a rapid fire, which means it's bound to get passed over by a lot of people. Now, admittedly, rapid fire frame snipers are not nearly as good as their primary weapon counterparts, but if there is one that has the most potential to make it into your arms on a daily basis, it is going to be Praedyth. Let me get to the roll and I'll tell you why. Fluted barrel, tactical magazine, rewind rounds, and high impact reserves. So as I said before, range on snipers, you don't really need it. You haven't needed it for a while. And being honest with ourselves, if you're using this thing, the chances are you're not looking to do the biggest boss damage in the entire world. You're probably looking for a fun time more than to sweat it out and deal tons of damage. Ignoring the barrel and the magazine I chose because I literally just went over that, why would I want rewind rounds over Feeding Frenzy? Personally, I don't use special weapons as a crowd control utility. And to me, that is exactly what Feeding Frenzy is meant for. Like I said before, I want the most amount of ammo, most amount of damage with the least amount of specifics. For Feeding Frenzy, you have to kill fast, and if you just so happen to be using Praedyth against a bigger boss type enemy, Feeding Frenzy is going to do nothing for you. But you know what is? Rewind rounds. Rewind works regardless on whether you're killing a wave after wave of ads or taking on a mini boss that the game decided to stick you with. As long as you land shots, the number of shots are returned back to your magazine. I can tell you for a fact, if you land all your shots out of a fresh mag with tactical magazine on, you can have at least 11 shots of Praedyth easy. And assuming you land all your shots, the mag starts with 7. And for some reason, whenever you land all 7, you get 4 back in the mag. You land those 4, it goes down to 2. You land those 2, it goes down to 1. And regardless on if you hit that 1, you have to reload. But that is the potential of 14 rounds out of a sniper rifle without having to reload at all. I don't care who you are, that's always welcome in my hands any day of the week. Now let's talk about something else, high impact reserves. Out of those 14 rounds, only 3 of them, maybe at the most being 5 of them, don't deal extra damage that high impact reserves gives it. That means at the minimum of 9 and at max at 11, rounds deal extra damage without having to get a kill or having to deal damage against a boss or anything. And to me, I'll take that any chance I can get. Granted, a good substitute for high impact would be Frenzy, but the only reason in my eyes high impact beats out Frenzy is because Frenzy takes a little while to get going. And if you're not in combat for however long you need to be, it's not active. High impact reserves is active. always. So a question you might have at this point, and what might possibly be a good transition, is if Praedyth with that role is so good, why not use it in endgame content? Well, there's a few reasons. One, I haven't gotten it tested out yet, so I honestly don't know how it holds up. Believe me, if it's worth taking into a Nightfall, I will be the first one to tell you. And second, rapid fire frame rifles just don't put out damage like aggressive frames can. Like, in all actuality, the only one that might come close is Praedyth, but I'll have to do more testing on that. And once again, if you use a rapid fire frame sniper in GMs and it works for you, then keep at it. If it works, it works. Don't mess with it. All right, so let's talk about our end game snipers now. Both of these are aggressive frame snipers, and if you've been playing Destiny for a while, I bet you can guess what I'm going to say even before I say it. Frozen Orbit and Succession. Starting with Frozen Orbit, I want the exact same role I want on Uzume. Fluted barrel, tactical magazine, clown cartridge, and high impact reserves. Since I already gave you the reasons why I want this on Uzume, I shouldn't have to tell you why I want it here as well. And why Frozen Orbit over Uzume for endgame. It all has to deal with the damage it can put out. Overall, Frozen Orbit has more damage potential, and maybe Uzume can beat it in damage if Uzume can load with 7 rounds in the magazine with clown cartridge. But since I'm sure they're both stuck at around 6 rounds, Frozen Orbit will deal more damage every time. If they have the same rounds in the magazine, Frozen Orbit's going to beat it out. There's no question. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't use Uzume for endgame. Hell, if you have that role and don't have a good Frozen Orbit or Succession, you'll want nothing else. I'm just saying, if I had all of these weapons available to me, Frozen Orbit is what I would choose. Now, let's talk about some of the perks that you can trade out, because I know grinding for a good Frozen Orbit is almost impossible, and because Frozen Orbit can roll with like almost a countless amount of different rolls, it's going to be difficult. You don't want to throw out a roll on a weapon that could potentially be exactly what you want. You know what I mean? So in the third column, you'll want clown cartridge, lead from gold, or triple tap. Why lead from gold? To put it as simply as I can, the more ammo you have access to, the better, and lead for gold helps with that. Not only that, but having 2 different ammo finders on your armor can really mess up a build if you are using like Charge with Light or Warmind cells that take a lot of energy from your armor. And why triple tap? Because when dealing with champions and Grandmasters, if you can stun them, you can make sure you land those crits you need for a triple tap. That, and not a lot of the strike bosses move like they're in the movie Happy Feet. Finally, we have Succession. This one is super different than the others, but it's for a good reason. You'll want fluted barrel, extended magazine, reconstruction, and Vorpal weapon. Now, I know what I said before about extended mag, but I have a very good reason for this. So extended mag gives Succession 4 rounds in the magazine in total. Add the backup mag mod to that, and that is 5 rounds. Go even further than that with reconstruction, and reconstruction refills your magazine steadily over time to double capacity. At the end of all of that, you have 10 rounds of an aggressive frame sniper, which no other gun can even remotely get close to in its same archetype. And because that's the case, this role is not only highly sought after, but also more rare than most exotics in this frickin' game. So, if you aren't able to get reconstruction and Vorpal on your Succession, then lead from gold is an extremely suitable substitute, no matter what anybody tells you. I would know, because I did Grandmasters with one all of last season. Lead from gold, Vorpal weapon, it works. Still, if you can get the reconstruction, extended mag, Vorpal weapon roll in this thing, you'll slay champions, mini bosses, and even final bosses like they're absolutely nothing. I can't say much more than that. And to tell you the truth, if you don't have Vorpal weapon on your Succession and instead you have something like reconstruction and recombination, it's not a terrible roll, but just be aware of the difference in recombo and Vorpal. That is going to be it for me for today, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I honestly really appreciate it. If you liked the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more. I did this video a little bit differently than I've been doing the other ones, and I've kind of been involving these videos as I've been going on, so I hope you like it. If you would like to see me in my live content, I am live on Twitch every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll have a link for that down in the description box below. But thank you all once again for watching. I really do appreciate it. I will see you all next time, and remember, keep your heads up and be kind to each other. Bye now.